Yes, so we have written two functions, and let's see when we call this, what happens. So it should be profile slash a username. Let's say right now I'm writing Kaushik K as a username. You see this, I'm able to fetch this, right? So how to pass the data in query, how to pass the data in params, these two things we have seen. Okay, how to pass the data in body is one important thing, but just remember, we do not pass the data with get API calls, right? Here we are doing a get call, right? So in order to pass the data, we'll have to do a post call. But let's write one more endpoint over here. And this time, instead of get, I'll be writing post. So let's say post and profile. Now these two paths are same, but the methods are different. So you can differentiate it. There is no issue in that, right? So let me write one more function here. Get, create, user. Create user, and here instead of params, we'll say body. So let's hit this API. And this time we'll be using Postman. So our application is running in 3000. I'll take this. Yeah, let's say I'm creating a new request. So I want to make a post request, and this is the endpoint. Here, I want to send a JSON data, okay? So what I'll do is I'll go to body. In this body, I'll select raw, and here you see a JSON option. And we have discussed about JSON, like how it looks like key value pair, right? So let me write here a key value pair name. Let's say the value is Kaushik. Let's say age. Let's say value is 26. And we hit on send. You see, I'm getting back the data. But let's see, are we getting this data which we sent? Yes. Yes. So now you know how to get the data from the users, from query, from params, from body, right? And let me just tell you quickly how you can get the data from headers and cookies as well. So always use the request. You will be saying request. Headers is a JSON object where you will specify which header you want. So you specify the key, you will get the value. Or if you just say request.header, it will give you entirely all the headers. Similarly, if you want cookies, you will be saying request.cookies. It will give you all the cookies. If you want some specific cookies, then request.cookies. Whatever cookie name you want. Okay. We discussed about authentication. So we send a JWT token to the user, and user makes an API call by sending a JWT every time to the server. That we will be keeping in cookies. So we'll name the cookie as JWT. And if you have to retrieve that cookie anytime, you just have to write request.cookies.jwt. Right? One important thing about cookie is it makes very easy for you to work with two application backend and front end. What happens is if server sets a cookie, okay, front end will automatically remember it until it expires. So while setting, you give expiry time, and server will automatically remember the expiry time. Every time you make an API call, sorry, every time you set a cookie, it will store it with it, and in every API call, it will send that cookie back to the server. Okay, so here are the syntax. You can go later on if you want to just revise it, like how query, body, headers, cookies, how you can get the data. So these are the these are the 5 ways. We have already seen 3. The fourth and the fifth one is similar to that. Okay. Now the most important one is about MongoDB. Okay. So let me just give you a small idea about SQL and NoSQL database. SQL database and NoSQL database. With the name only you can understand. SQL means structured query language. NoSQL means no structured, right? Okay. So the major difference is if you are using SQL, then your schema will be fixed schema. You cannot change the schema of the tables every time. But in NoSQL, that is not rigid. You can change it. So let me tell you a few examples of NoSQL database. Like there is graph. No, there is a graph database which is called as Neo4j. Okay. There is key value pair database which is Redis. There is document database which is MongoDB. So there are 3 types of NoSQL database: key value, graph, and document. Okay, right now we'll be using a document database which is MongoDB. Advantage of NoSQL database is it can scale horizontally, and SQL database scales vertically. Vertically means, let's say if you have a database, it has some memory limit. So you can store 10,000 records. You can have a bigger machine which can store 1 lakh record. You can have even bigger machine which can store 10 lakh records. But there will be some constraint, right? Like you cannot make it big, big, big. Sometime you will have to stop at the maximum machine size which you can create. But with NoSQL database, it's different. It scales horizontally. Means you have one machine, you add one more machine to it. You add one more machine to it. If you need more, you add one more machine to it. So instead of scaling one machine, you are basically adding on more and more machine, right? So this is called as horizontal scaling, and for SQL it is called as vertical scaling, right? So if there is very big uh, database you want, or if there is huge number of operation, then go with NoSQL database. This is in short about it. Okay, so in our project, we'll be using a library which is Mongoose. Mongoose will help us to define the schema, talk with the database. Okay, so let's see few of the operations over there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create one file over here, which is, let's say, folder, which is DB. Inside DB, I'll create one file called connect.js. And here I'll write a function which will connect your Node.js to MongoDB. Okay, so I have already given a template code over here. I'll just take this as it is. This requires a connection string. Okay, we also need to install Mongoose. So let's quickly install Mongoose in our project. Yeah, so I'll have to write sudo npm i mongoose, and it should install Mongoose, right? We need a connection string. All right, so let me take a connection string. Okay, just to show you, let me take one connection string, and you can see what is the name of this function over here. ConnectDB, right? So I'll just take this function, go to index.js and call it over here. So I need to import this. Now see, when this function runs, if it connects, it will print this line MongoDB connected. So I should get here MongoDB connected, right? Now for each table you want to create in this database, you have to define the schema for that. Am I right? So let's take one table. Uh, for now I'm just taking this template, but later on you can look at it and create based on your requirement what tables you want to create. Okay. So here I'll create one more folder. Let's call it as model. Oh, my bad. Model. Inside this, all the schemas we will be writing. So let's say user.js. So what we are saying is we import Mongoose. From Mongoose, we get a schema. And inside this, you have to pass a object which should have a schema of all the columns in the table. So what we are saying is name is one of the field. Type of the name is string. It is required for sure. If you have to create a record, you must give this. Then we have email. That is also required. It should be unique also. As well as there is age, which is not required, but the default value is 18. Then there is a Boolean value, is admin. If it is by default false, you can change it to true. There is timestamp true. What this does, it if you keep this, it will automatically add two fields, which is created at and updated at two timestamps. When this record was updated, when this record was created. So this is how you define a schema. You can create your, there are more things like there is type called as enum. Then there is type called as object. There is reference. You can also define primary key. Okay, you can reference different table also. Actually, referencing is not a property which which NoSQL supports, but nowadays those things are also there in the NoSQL database. So let's quickly see how we'll be using this. Okay, I think we should not write connect DB here. Just for connection heads. Yeah. So here actually I should write user. Or we can write here itself, right? Export const user, and this line is no longer required. Okay, this is how you create a schema. Now in a schema, you can do some operations like you can create a record, you can find a record, you can delete a record. So let's see those operations, how we can do. Okay, so let me go to this place at routes, sorry, in controller. In this, I have a function called as create user. I want to create a user over here. So I will have to get a model. So if you look at the high level diagram, right? Right now we are at controller, and here we can write logic as well as CRUD operations with the help of MongoDB, right? So we are using the model here, Mongoose model, to connect to MongoDB. How we'll be doing is we have a model called as user. So let me import this user. And here are the functions written: find, create, update one, delete one. So let's say I want to create. I want to create a user. Okay. So what I'll be doing is, let me first create a object of that schema. So I'll say const new user is equal to new user, and here you need to pass the values. So in user, you can see it is showing it over here, like what things are there: name is there, email is there, age is there. So name and email are the two must to have. So let's say name is equal to nothing but required dot body dot name, and email, let's say required dot body dot email, and we'll say this new user dot create. Sorry. Right. Okay. But now see, we are making a network call, and network call should always be inside try catch, and we should await that, so that once we get the data, next line of code is running. So one thing I'll have to make two changes here. First, use try catch. If there is any error, can you tell me, if there is any error, what should we send to user? What is status code? 500 internal server. Status 500, which is internal server error. So send the same error. We can also log this. So we are logging it and sending 500, right? Else we'll be writing here our code. Now the thing here is, this function should be ushing, so that we can use await over here. So let new user is equal to, okay, new user is already there. Let's say new. Here we have to write await, and this variable I'll say as created. Let me send this as a response. So let's try to see what happens. We'll make this post call, as we are creating a user. We have a name, we must have an email also, right? Let's try to hit this. What error we get? Okay, let's see if it is up and running. There is some error. Have we imported this correctly? User dot. Okay, MongoDB connected, and let's make a 500 error, right? Okay, so we can see what is the error here. It says new user dot create is not a function, right? So maybe we have made a mistake in creating the user. So let me say, instead of create, save. Okay, and run it once again. Created, right? And we can see that there is underscore ID, which is by default added. It is a unique identifier. Underscore ID in a Mongo record is a unique identifier. See the email The one which we gave, with the help of that, it is created. Now here you can add multiple logics here. If a user already exists with this email, do not create a user. Am I right? You can also check that name and email is there in the body or not. If it is not there, then what error should we send? Bad request. Right. So you send a 400 saying that body, the request body doesn't have required values, right? So those logics, we can add it over here. Now, let's say I will be writing one more one more function here, which is find user. So you know how to create a record. Let's see how we can find a record. It is going to be simple. Let's say in body, okay, find a record means, should we make a post call, get call, patch call? Which type of call it will be? Get call, because we want the data, right? Means we need to send the information either in query or we have to send in params, right? So we have one type of such function here, get my details. So let me write this logic over here. So I'll be sending a email here. Instead of username, I'll be sending a email, and with the help of email, if we have any user, we'll send back the user. Okay. So get rid of body. First, let me write this with all the checks. So first thing we'll be writing is, we want the value in the params, right? So here I'm removing this and I'm writing const user exist is equal to await. Let's put async. User is the model, and you see in the diagram, if you have to connect to MongoDB, you have to use Mongo's model. So I'll say user dot find. There are many options here. You see find one, find by ID. Right now I have an email, right? So let's say how I'll extract email is, I'll say const email is equal to require dot params dot email. I'll change the name over here. So if I go, I'll change this to email so that I get the value with the email. So I have an email. I see if I use find, it will give me all the records which are matching with this. But I want only one record. So in find, there is a JSON, there is an object you can send, and this object will match with all the records. Like if I write email is equal to email, this means it will find all the records where email is this email and give you. But do I want many record? No, I know that there is only one record with it. So instead of using find, I'll be using find one. If you have a ID underscore ID of that, you can also use find one by ID. Okay. So what logic we are going to write over here is, there are two things. We'll be sending if user exists, we'll be sending one type of data, else we'll be sending other type of data. Okay. So here, if the user exists, then we'll be sending return response dot status code should be 200 dot send user exist. Else I'll be sending return response dot status. What should I send? 4 not 4. And here you can say status not found, or some meaningful message, right? Right. Perfect. So let's call this API and see if it is working or not. So I'll go here. After profile, I should give a email. Am I right? So I'm just copying this email with which I created, and I should make a get request. Do you get the data? But if I make a wrong request, do I get the data? No. So is it working as okay? Now the next one we have to see is update. How do you update the values? Okay. So let me show it to you over here itself. Uh, Here, the first value I sent, okay, was matching record. Like it matches the records with this. If I have to update, so what I'll be doing is, let me copy this as it is, and okay, my bad. Let me copy this function as it is. Here I'll be update my record. Okay. So I'll be passing here few things in the body, and I want all those things to get updated. Fine. So I'll be matching the record. Now find one will not work. Need to update. So find one, and there are many things, and replace and update. So I'll be using and update, and here I'll be simply passing this request.body. You can destructure it also. Like let's say you only want to update the name. So you can just say name colon request.body.name. Or you also want to update, let's say, some more things towards age. So you'll say request.body.age. Or if you write request.body, every value there will get updated, right? So the first one is matching. Second one is a first one you can treat it as a query. Second one you can treat it as a update, right? So now help me to write a path over here. It should be URL router dot put or patch. We are not updating all the values, right? I mean, yeah, slash profile slash email and this function. Perfect. So let's try to update this. And in return, basically, we'll be returning the return value. Okay. So, huh? Email? Email will be getting from parents or we'll be getting from parents. So, I will just change this type to patch, and this time in body I'm sending age. Let's say I don't need this. Let's try to hit. It gives 404. So there is some issue. Okay, email is wrong. Still. In the controller, we are trying to get email from body. Okay, my bad. Update my details, right? Okay, got it. So this email should be from required dot parents dot email. Perfect. Okay, Morgan is logging this out. URL profile patch call. And put in let's do one thing. Let's try to get this user detail. But age did not update. Huh? patch call. Okay, let's see if at least the call is coming up to here or not. So console.log, I'll be logging the body. Okay. So if you see here, patch call. Are we hitting the correct? So index, we are going to, let me close this. We are going to URL, then profile, and then the name. So URL, we are going to profile, email, which is fine because this is patch. You can differentiate. Okay, I wrote user. It should be URL router now. Got it? It's also okay. Now see, here it is showing 18. Am I right? Once again, if I call it, it is showing 26. This means the value is getting updated. The value I'm getting is previous record, right? So there is a way to get a new record. We have to say here new. Okay. So then it gives you the updated record. If you keep new false, then it will give you the previous record, right? So we are done with uh, create, find, and update, right? Delete, I'll tell you, we never delete the data. We try to soft delete. So in all records, we'll keep one Boolean variable, which is, yeah, is deleted. So here, let me show you how we are going to do this. Is deleted, and this will be of type Boolean, and by default, it will be false. So now, let's say by default it is false means fine. So every query I'll be writing in the filter, I must pass that the is deleted field is false, so that I'm not doing any operation on the deleted record, right? So delete will also be a patch call because you are just updating one field, right? So easy to create MongoDB schema and work with it. Mongoose will help you to do this, right? Now, can you connect these all points in this diagram? We have a web servers which delivers the pages from test. We have a API server. We have logically segregated our all the endpoints with the help of routes of Express. Now these routes have a function which is written in controller. This controller has logic plus DB access, right? So this controller will talk to DB with the help of Mongoose, right? So this is how our whole application is working. Okay, so I'll take you back to this articles in mm, Mentorpick, and here you can go through later to see more things. I have added more details about here, how you can delete a user, how can you find and delete a user, like more operations on Mongoose. Okay, we have just seen the CRUD operations like create, read, update, delete, right? Now, one final thing we'll be learning is middleware. This place where we are defining our routes. Okay, there is path and there is a ultimate function which runs, right? Between this, we can introduce our middleware. Middleware are something which you want to run in middle. So let me just create one more folder over here, call it as middleware. Here I'll be writing some function, let's say user middleware.js. So let me quickly write one function over here, export const user middleware. And here I'll just say console log user middleware is running. This middleware will have two things, which is request response. Addition to this, there is one more thing which is called as next. So let me just call next over here. I'm picking this middleware, going to routes and placing it over here in the middle. Let's say I'm placing it everywhere here in the middle. See what will happen. What I have written in this middleware, user middleware is running. Let me hit this. Status not found. Okay, 1 second. Did we change anything? Get call. Okay, we are getting 200. Now let's come over here. You see here user middleware is running. Yeah. Now here we have a next function. If I do not call this next function, just let me comment it out. And now click on this. You see it got stuck. It's not returning anything. And if you see the log, it says user middleware is running, but correct. I can do one thing over here is I can return from here itself. I can say response dot, let's say send some data. So let me hit this once again. You see this empty data. So middleware are the place, middleware are the functions which you can run in middle of the ultimate function, right? And this middleware will help you do something like authorization check. So your APIs can be protected in two ways. You can protect your API with the help of API key and with the help of token, right? So generally you would have used some APIs, they give you API key. So if you make a request by sending API in the header, then they will give you the data. So that API check is written as a middleware function, right? In our application also, we'll write a protect middleware. What it will be doing is it will check you are logged in or not. To check you are logged in or not, it will check you have a token. It will decode it. It will check it is expired or not, all those things. If it is perfect, it will let you go to run the next function, else it will return from there itself, right? So middlewares are also function which is reusable and you can place it over something here, right? Okay. So we'll take a small pause over here.